I've been working for the affluent Matthews family for 18 years, and out of the blue, they accused me of being a bogus heiress. The genuine heiress Sarah was in tears, pleading with her adoptive parents to boot me out because my presence made her feel awful. My real mom, Laura, grabbed me and dashed away, terrified that the Matthews would try to keep us apart. You see, both of us were aware that the end times were looming. Laura owned land, a house, a convenience store, and some storage units, not just a bunch of meaningless numbers. On the flip side, Sarah's situation was rough. Can you get it, sweetie? Adoptive mom Grace held my hand earnestly. The day before, Sarah had appeared with a DNA test, asserting she was the rightful heiress. She claimed she had been mistreated in the countryside by her adoptive mom, my true mother, Laura. After raising me for so long, Grace and her husband had mixed feelings but hadn't decided what to do with me. But Sarah was all drama. She said seeing me reminded her of her swapped life and made her sad, even pulling out a fake depression diagnosis just yesterday. So Grace told me all that, and I gave a small smile, saying, "It's cool, just give me some time to pack." Sarah freaked out, insisting, "You can't take that. Those are my things." Grace sensed something was fishy and scolded her. "Sarah, don't be like this." Sarah started crying hysterically again. "I've never worn a decent dress my whole life." Seeing her like that, how could I not feel bad? I couldn't handle it anymore. "Sarah, my mom didn't do anything wrong. She wasn't wealthy, but she gave you everything she could." Sarah held her head, leaning into Grace. "Mom, my head hurts so much." Grace thought she was having a meltdown and was beside herself with worry, scolding me. "Mia, aren't you going to apologize to Sarah? What right do you have to make my daughter apologize?" I turned around to see my real mom, dressed in plaid like a country gal, striding in. My eyes immediately welled up. Honestly, I'd been reborn. In my last life, shortly after Laura took me back, the glaciers melted and an ancient virus broke out. Total apocalypse mode. We were all stuck at home. The countryside was better. We had land and could survive. The Matthews only had fake money, which was totally worthless later on. Laura was worried about Sarah, whom she'd raised for 18 years, and took the risk to bring her some food. She never returned. Laura was a straightforward, fiery-tempered countrywoman. She quickly pulled me behind her, giving Sarah a look that tugged at my heartstrings. I think she was reborn too. Sarah nervously backed away, looking at Laura like a stranger. "Mom, I'm scared. I'm afraid she'll hit me again." Grace hugged Sarah protectively. "It's all good. Mom's here. She won't hurt you." I rolled my eyes. "Such drama." Grace scolded me, "Raising you all these years for nothing." Laura immediately lunged at her, but I stopped her. "Glad you finally see her true colors, Mom. Let's bounce." Laura grabbed my hand tightly, spitting at the Matthews. "Watch out! Don't come asking me for anything in the future." The Matthews family laughed at that. What could a wealthy family want from a country woman? I didn't take anything and left with Laura. Laura cursed all the way. I hesitantly asked, "Mom, where were you before? Why didn't you come back?" Laura looked at me surprised. "Daughter, you're different." I chuckled secretly. "Yeah, you're different too. When we first met last life, things weren't this smooth between us." Just like Sarah, I had some lingering feelings from my adoptive parents. Our bond grew only after spending over a year in the apocalypse together. Seeing me like this, Laura understood and got excited too. "Mom will take good care of you this time." I sensed she was dodging the topic of not returning last time, but she quickly changed the subject. "Mia, remember how many days until it happens?" I thought for a second. "A week." Laura shouted, "Oh, wow. Young people really have great memories." Then she dragged me onto a train. We switched trains 4 times before getting back to the village. In the countryside, Laura had built a house and cleared some land herself. My dad had passed away years ago, and she had been raising Sarah alone all this time. To support her, she even opened a small general store in the village. Right after we got back, she went to the store and called up the suppliers. She hunted down all the flour and rice suppliers she could find and stocked up like crazy. I said beside her, "You can't just buy rice and flour. Get some canned and compressed foods too. They last longer." She waved me off. "Don't worry about storage." I was puzzled. "Why?" She mysteriously replied, Mom's got this thing called space. I was shocked. We got lucky? I nodded eagerly. Yeah. I earned some cash from drawing comics these past 2 years, about 20 grand. Let's spend it all. Writing things down, Laura had supply channels and could get anything. We stocked up on flour and rice first, then various meats. Having survived an apocalypse last time, she knew without me telling her, when the essentials ran out, she'd start with vegetables. We also grabbed sanitary products, clothes, and medicines. After all that, I quietly asked for some snacks like spicy strips, coffee, ice cream, and chips. Laura agreed. Take the tricycle out, grab the medicine while you're at it. Got it. In 3 days, Laura bought tens of thousands of pounds of grain, meat, and vegetables. She practically blew through her and my combined 40K savings. Her space really could store anything, keeping everything fresh. We could have enough to eat for over 20 years. After she was gone last time, I barely scraped by for 2 years. You just never see an end to it. All week we were busy buying, fetching, and organizing food. After another exhausting day, Laura and I laid on the rooftop stargazing. The local population was small, all self-built homes like ours. I was scrolling through an app on my phone and saw Sarah live streaming her real daughter's return routine. She was crying her eyes out about past abuse. Too bad most online folks weren't fools, and the comments tore into her. Wasn't easy for a widow to raise you, right? An uneducated woman acting as both mom and dad. How gentle can you expect her to be? Trying to incite cyberbullying against your adoptive mom. Thank God she's not your actual mom. Sarah cried and ended the stream. I smirked a bit. With headphones on, Laura didn't know what I was watching. She was fanning off mosquitoes with a big palm fan. Then she suddenly said, "Mia, we're set for food, but what about the villagers?" I thought they wouldn't believe us if we told them. Honestly, I'd already used an alternate account to post warnings on a bunch of forums. Nobody believed me. Out of a dozen posts, only 2 comments called me crazy. Laura asked, "So what now? Share the food with them when it happens?" That won't work. We can't share that much. Plus, we've spent all our money. She felt guilty. I thought long and hard and came up with an idea. "Mom, let's borrow money tomorrow. Be bold, borrow as much as we can." Laura was startled. Borrow money for what? To buy supplies for them and store it at our place. We're just regular folks. That's all we can do. Laura jumped up. "Sure, why wait for tomorrow? Let's do it now. No time to waste." Laura really went for it. She knocked on every door in the village, claiming she had cancer. She asked for tens of thousands, sometimes even more. To my surprise, many villagers actually gave her their retirement money. But this needed to be done secretly, at night. Since it was the middle of the night, word didn't spread. Laura and I went around like bandits, borrowing from every household. By morning, everyone realized Laura had visited every single house. She looked like a scammer, conning the whole village out of their retirement funds. With dawn came an angry mob at our doorstep. Luckily, I had the foresight to drag Laura and escape overnight. No way we could explain this. We spent 4 days outside, buying and hoarding groceries and staples. We blew through the borrowed hundreds of thousands. By then, Laura was getting nervous. "What if the apocalypse doesn't come, Mia?" she asked. I laughed through my tears. "Then we just pay our debts. Anything's better than the apocalypse." But like before, it came. First, there were typhoon warnings, claiming it was the biggest storm in history, advising everyone to stay inside. The storm was worse than predicted, 5 or 6 days of relentless wind, tsunamis, earthquakes, wiping out coastal cities. Then came the virus. Laura and I snuck back home during the storm. We bolted our doors, listening to the terrifying winds as we organized our stockpiles. Our inland village, away from fault lines, was less affected. In the past, our biggest enemy was a lack of supplies. The storm, like before, didn't let up. It took 5 days before it subsided. Caught off guard, no one was prepared. Early one day, Laura grabbed her old megaphone for selling wares and shouted around the village, "Laura's here to return your money. Everyone, come to Laura's house." It was simple and loud. Before long, people were spreading the word, "Laura's returning money. Head to Laura's place." My mom opened the front door, and everyone was shocked. 3 floors of our self-built house, from the courtyard to the rooftop, even the cellar packed with supplies. The village head was dumbfounded. "Laura, What's this about? Where's our money? Exhausted, Laura said, "It bought you all this food. We worked hard to explain the upcoming food shortage due to the virus spreading." Many elders had already been told by their kids in the city to stock up. Someone complained, "But you didn't need to buy so much." Laura gritted her teeth. "Take it for now. If we don't use it, I'll pay you back later." She waved a handful of IOUs. "No need to worry about these." Finally, folks calmed down. Later, Laura said, "Can't blame them. I'd be skeptical too. We had prepared the finances ahead of time, distributing goods based on the money borrowed. By afternoon, the news broke out. The virus was here, asking survivors to quarantine at home. Prices soared in the cities, with panic buying everywhere. Silence fell as people started moving their stuff faster, watching our house get emptied out. The village head asked my mom, "Laura, what about you?" Laura waved him off. "I've got more in the store's warehouse." Even he seemed unsure. "Let us know if you need anything." Laura ushered him out. "I got it." Once the door locked, we passed out on the sofa, not bothering to go upstairs. Lots to prepare for. In 3 months, the power would be out. When we stocked up for the villagers, Laura made sure to get fresh produce and storage-friendly items like compressed biscuits and canned food. We didn't even unwrap the packages for safety. She secretly told me, "We gotta eat fresh stuff." We bought tons of food-grade storage buckets and cooked piles of rice. The plan was to cook it and stash it in Laura's space so we could eat it as needed. While the rice cooked, Laura was busy making dough, teaching me at the same time. We were sneezing nonstop while kneading. I joked, "I bet they'll curse us when they find those cans." Laura was more optimistic. "Nonsense, we're just sneezing from the flour." Achoo! She suggested opening the window for better airflow. When we did, we heard the old widow across the street yelling towards our window, "You heartless thieves, stole the old lady's burial money." The wind was so strong it carried away most of her shout. Laura quickly shut the window, playfully sticking her tongue out at me. Shortly after, the village announced roadblocks, allowing entry only. Globally, quakes and tsunamis were rampant. A small country without nukes reportedly had a nuclear blast due to a quake. It really felt like doomsday was creeping up. Our village was a sanctuary, far from the oceans and fault lines, only impacted by the distant typhoon cities, leaving us with relentless storms. Some elders were already on the phone, calling their kids back from far away. They began to buy into the apocalypse talk, saying they'd never seen anything like it in their lifetime. But when they called family elsewhere, they got an earful. Those who called me and my mom crazy were still around, but when they called family elsewhere, they got an earful. Those who called me and my mom crazy were getting their turn. As Laura and I cooked and made dough, we'd hear the old widow across the street, mainly cursing her daughter-in-law, calling her a homewrecker, blocking her son's family. I frowned. Why say such awful things? While Laura was teaching me how to make buns, she said, "Country folks may talk rough, but their hearts aren't bad." One night, she rushed to someone's door claiming she had cancer. The old lady gave her 50 grand, all cash sewn into different pockets, a thick stack of 5 bundles. Don't be fooled by her harsh words now. When her daughter-in-law had issues with her own family, it was Laura who had her back. Laura taught me, don't judge people just by how nice their words are. Just then, the home phone rang. Laura said, "Mia, wash your hands and get the phone. Play around for a bit afterwards." "Sure thing." I walked over and picked up the call. It was Sarah. On the other end, she was crying, "Mom, our house collapsed in an earthquake. We almost died." In the past, when major disasters broke out, we divided the world into 3 zones. Our village, which was less affected, was called the Paradise Zone. Another, utterly destroyed by disasters, was the Early Death Zone. The last half-alive places were the Purgatory Zone. Sarah's home is now in the early stages of the Purgatory Zone. I turned on the speaker, and Laura instinctively came over. She was crying dramatically on the other end. "Mom, we're all crammed into a survivor base, and conditions are terrible. We're rationed on food. I only get some crackers and canned food. Because my birth mother is sick, she gets all the fresh veggies. Mom, last night I dreamed of your pumpkin rice. Could you send me some pumpkin?" I glanced at Laura. Her expression shifted constantly, lost in thought. I said, "Sarah, are you out of your mind? Everyone's under quarantine and you want my mom to send you pumpkins?" Sarah was surprisingly shameless. crying even harder. Mia, I'm sorry. I was in a bad mood before. I have depression. Please don't stop Mom from talking to me. We were together for 18 years. I miss her. I responded, You miss the pumpkin, not Mom. Laura, kneading pumpkin bread, gave me a helpless look. I angrily hung up the phone. Laura silently continued kneading the dough. In the past, I used to hate Sarah with a passion, not just because she alienated my adoptive parents from me, but because she later took my birth mother away too. But after being reborn, my mindset changed in a strange way. Maybe after surviving the apocalypse, I just became indifferent to her. Turns out, Laura, the best revenge is ignoring your enemy. And it felt amazing. In the evening, while surfing the net, I accidentally stumbled upon her live stream. She actually recorded and edited our call, cutting out the part where she asked for pumpkin, leaving only the bits of her crying and me yelling at her. This time, she seemed to have figured out how to gain attention on social media without fully accusing Laura. In front of the camera, she cried, I don't blame her. I know she envies me. She took away the love from both sets of parents. I was about to scroll away. Suddenly, she said, Thanks to the top supporter for the gift. I spit out the sip of water I had just taken. Laura rushed over. What happened? Water too hot? I coughed. I'm fine. Laura ruffled my hair and glanced at my phone. Oh, she's doing that again. She used to do this. Oh yeah, always on her phone. Who knows what she was up to? No wonder she's so good at it, I said. She could make money from this? Laura waved it off. Nah, never made a dime. Looking at her growing fan base, I thought, she could probably earn some cash now. This Sarah, she's not just a bitch, she's got ambition and drive. Seeing Laura unfazed by it, we started watching her live streams out of boredom. Now, we might be part of Sarah's popularity strategy. She started calling us frequently, then immediately edited and showcased it in her live streams. Sometimes, even when I hadn't said anything, she crafted entire stories out of thin air. As her fans kept increasing, I was amazed. Isn't it the apocalypse? Why are people still so into this drama? The more Laura watched, the less she cared. After kneading dough for 2 months, she started experimenting. She sculpted little bunnies and pig heads out of the dough. One day Sarah called again. This time, maybe not recorded. She said, Loser, do you know how much I made in 2 months? 200 grand? I sighed. You have the worst timing. Sarah was confused. What do you mean? I didn't answer and hung up. The next day, I heard her city, London, got hit by another earthquake. The base stations broke, causing an internet blackout. She couldn't even log onto the platform, let alone cash out. After 2 months of staying home, various geological disasters started to fade. The skies slowly cleared up, and the ground became stable. However, as human activities began to gradually resume, a virus spread even faster across the globe. I knew from my past life this virus only infects humans, rapidly dropping blood oxygen levels, leading to organ failure. Highly contagious, the disease course is short and fast. Some called it divine punishment. Corpses lay everywhere outside. Our village still had 0 infections. Luckily, those who had ventured out for work were scolded back home by their elders. The village head called a meeting to do a head count. All were back. He decided to reinforce the village entrances with barriers and electric fences. I questioned, what if there's a power outage? In my memory, we lose power next month. What if there's a power outage? In my memory, we lose power next month. The village head assured, we've got generators, solar, wind, tons of backup to power the grid. I was shocked. You thought of everything, Uncle. The village head proudly said, our power used to go out all the time. I asked, did your son set up a system? Didn't expect to use it now? His son, Benton, is a Cambridge physics prodigy. Suddenly, I remembered the village head's name, Marcus, truly fitting for someone who seemed to have divine luck. In this life, the village vibe was entirely different from the last. Last time, it wasn't that safe here. Everyone was just waiting it out, starving each day. Now, with the electric fence, there's a newfound safety. A month later, the power did go out, but the village's systems prioritized the fence. Rural folks were used to power and internet outages, so they didn't mind. They embraced a simple life. Sometimes I even tagged along with Laura for walks and collecting firewood. Laura mentioned, if I'd known, we wouldn't have cooked every meal those first few months. We were both aching all over and even used the remaining patches from our supplies for relief. I replied, "Not so sure. People are resourceful. Might run out of firewood someday." Mostly, it was just boredom, not being able to leave the village or watch TV. So the whole village started chopping wood, fishing, and catching little animals. Yesterday, someone got injured by a wild boar. We were just talking about it. Then we saw the village head on a three-wheeler with a raggedy megaphone, yelling, "No reckless logging, no indiscriminate hunting or fishing. If you don't listen, the health clinic won't treat you. You guys are full and bored, huh? Never been hungry, have you?" He grumbled as he passed by. The driver was his son, Benton, who seemed like he was forced into this, looking expressionless the whole time. The village head yelled from noon till night. Laura and I were bored, so we sat by the window for dinner, listening to him switch up his words. Eventually, his megaphone battery died right below my window. "Hey, Benton, my megaphone's out of juice." "Benton?" he replied. "If it's out, it's out." His dad grabbed him by the collar. "I don't care, you better solve it." Benton looked at his dad like he was dealing with a brat. "I leaned out the window, Uncle. I got batteries, size C, right?" The village head was thrilled. Yeah, toss 'em down." So, instead of running downstairs, I just threw the batteries down to him. Benton sighed and had to continue driving his dad around the village. Late at night, Laura and I were winding down after a big meal. We heard the village head shouting from the entrance, "Get lost! Leave and you're not part of our village." Laura and I were stuck, so we joined the villagers to check out the commotion. We didn't expect what we saw. Sarah showed up with 6 guys, looking like they'd been through hell. They were skinny and in ragged clothes. "Uncle, please let us in." When Laura and I got there, it seemed the whole village was already there. Everyone was pretty bored. A neighbor munching on sunflower seeds commented, "Does she have no shame? Used to call us bumpkins. Who knows if they got some virus on them?" "Laura, don't soften up now." "Yeah, they might get the whole village sick." Laura ducked behind me. Thankfully, Sarah didn't see us. She was eyeing the neighbor eating sunflower seeds like a starving wolf, making them step back. "What's happening here? Why are you asking?" "Someone's eating sunflower seeds at a time like this. What kind of family can afford sunflower seeds now?" Sarah took a step forward involuntarily, grabbed the electric fence, and got zapped. Neighbors exclaimed. I looked around and saw everyone was watching her, like she was a circus act. Clearly, Sarah hadn't made many friends here. Benton pulled his dad aside. "Dad, these folks don't mean well." He adjusted his glasses, looking coldly at those with Sarah. "What's the plan?" The village head asked, "Tonight I'll crank the electric fence to the max. Don't forget to beef up patrols, okay?" Laura overheard and stepped forward before I could pull her back. "Mom, let's go." I warned her with a glance, but Laura didn't hesitate. She spun around and left with me. Even after bringing Laura home, Sarah's arrival kept me tense. The memories from before were terrifying. Beyond typhoons, tsunamis, and earthquakes, it was a virus that truly paralyzed society. The X virus started spreading through bodily fluids, excrement, and fleas or mosquitoes carrying the virus. Soon it would evolve to spread via respiratory droplets. Looking at the folks with Sarah today, they were so skinny, who knows if they're infected. I was up late, peering out the window towards the village entrance. The village head and Benton managed to send most of the curious villagers home, but we could still hear Sarah's gut-wrenching cries from my place. As I fretted, Benton passed by below. "Benton!" I waved to him. He looked up at me and stopped. I motioned to Laura and dashed downstairs. "Benton? What if she causes a ruckus all night?" Benton reassured, "Let her. Don't worry. We'll have folks guarding the entrance tonight, but you can't guard forever. What if someone gets soft-hearted? Our village hasn't been through storms like this. Our moral and legal beliefs aren't broken yet." To put it simply, hundreds of people in the village could have hundreds of different ideas. Just one troublemaker complicates things. Benton looked at me, surprised. That's something I overlooked. I gave him a loaded look. "How can we make her stop talking?" He glanced at me, then threw out, "The villagers wouldn't accept it. If it were up to me, just shoot her from a distance for world peace." He saw through me but disagreed. He even advised, "When law and order fall apart, we can't just open Pandora's box." Benton and I disagreed here. I wasn't being pessimistic. I genuinely feared someone playing victim could sway the village's kind people. The next morning, I quickly ran to the entrance. That sympathy seeker Sarah cried all night, her voice hoarse, yet still spewing, "We're not sick. We really aren't. Uncles, aunties, I grew up in this village too. You can't watch me die. It's 7 lives here. How can you leave us to die? Won't your conscience suffer?" As I suspected, some villagers looked uneasy. One neighbor said, "They made it to the village gate." Another added, "It's still lives." Ugh! Sarah knelt, bowing to the villagers. "I don't want to die. Please let us in." As she begged pitifully, I caught a glimpse of malicious calculation in her eyes when she glanced at me. It was like she was saying, "Watch, I'll get in sooner or later." As the villagers' chatter grew louder, I was figuring out my next move. That's when Benton spoke up. "You can't come in, but if anyone has extra food, toss it their way." I was confused. Benton added, "The area's spacious and isolated, no cases here. With food they can survive, and we'll have done our part." Hearing this, the villagers sprang into action. They climbed trees, tossing out a couple of packs of stored biscuits. "Now we can chop wood and cook. These taste awful anyhow." "Sarah, we can only feed you. We can't let you in." "Yeah, no one nearby. You guys manage outside." As soon as they tossed the biscuits, the villagers felt better. Sarah's companion scrambled to pick them up, but she kept pleading, "Let us in, please." Now the villagers weren't having any of it. "We gave you food. Stop making a fuss. Don't you have any shame trying to get us killed on purpose?" Exactly. I never saw that twist coming at all. I looked at Benton, shocked, just as he pushed up his glasses and let out a cynical smile. "There's no such thing as completely good people in this world. Just folks with no sense," he said. His maneuver to lure the enemy worked. It got hundreds of people to think the same way. The villagers felt they'd already helped Sarah, so they stopped worrying about her. By the afternoon, everyone started to leave the village entrance. And Sarah, although she got supplies, lost her chance to enter the village for good. I still felt uneasy. Applying mosquito repellent oil daily and keeping an eye on Sarah, I noticed the louder she screamed, the worse she got cursed at. The villagers couldn't understand why she insisted on coming in. They gave her food, didn't they? Finally, a dispute broke out within Sarah's little group. The 6 people who came with her suggested finding another way. That day, Benton and I were sitting under a crooked tree by the village entrance, having lunch. Laura had packed me some meat buns and salted chicken, along with a couple of Cokes, which I shared with Benton. Sarah, who was preparing to leave, swallowed hard and suddenly rushed toward the electric fence. "Do you know that Mom's almost dying?" My left hand held a meat bun, my right a salted chicken leg, staring at her blankly. Sarah held back her urge to lash out and put on a pitiful face again. "Mia, honestly, we came here first to gather some info. Dad and Mom are back at the base, and the conditions there are terrible. I get you're mad at me, but they did raise you for 18 years. She started crying as she spoke. Benton looked at me. "She's trying to lure you out. Don't fall for it. There's no way I'd fall for it." In the past life, she called Laura, crying about how our birth parents were gone. I pulled the chicken bone out of my mouth and looked at Sarah. "Want a lick of this bone, maybe?" Benton joined in. "Auntie's cooking is really good. Even the bones are flavorful." Having eaten compressed biscuits for days, Sarah instinctively swallowed. When she realized what she'd done, her face went beet red with anger. "Mia, you just wait and see." She finally left with her little group. I won't lie, the hateful look she gave me as she was leaving could scare a kid into nightmares. Finally, she's gone. I felt at ease. I selfishly thought it was all over. Benton pushed up his glasses. "Do you know why I hang out here every day?" I turned to him. "Why?" I admit it seemed odd. "I watch over Sarah," he said. "Isn't it because you want my family's buns?" Benton pointed at the group, leaving. "They have guns." I was speechless. Benton added, "We're not ready. We can't risk casualties by confronting them. Linda's group are desperados. If they can't enter our village, they'll cause trouble elsewhere." He repeated, "Linda's group are desperados. If they can't enter our village, they'll cause trouble elsewhere." After Sarah and her group left, I joined the village activities. First up was the mosquito elimination team. The village leader organized the women to burn mugwort everywhere. Almost every kid in the village had a mosquito zapper. Some even had roller skates and skated around the village with mosquito zappers, having the time of their lives. Then there was the herbal repellent made by the village's traditional doctor. The village had several pedal-powered generators, with people taking turns riding them 24/7, keeping the power storage full. There was also an old revolutionary's descendant in the village, who learned how to make homemade weapons from his dad. He led the villagers to make bows, slingshots, and even homemade cannons and landmines. As for food, the village's economy went back to the commune era, with everyone discussing how to allocate labor and the fruits of their labor. We managed without letting the law or morals fall apart, keeping busy and even laughing. Life wasn't too tough. If it wasn't for our inability to leave, I'd almost forget how messed up the outside world is now. One day, my mom asked me to take food to Benton at the signal tower. I found my way there and saw him fiddling with a drone. Benton. Benton? Shirtless, he was playing with the remote. He turned and glanced at me. Almost a year into the apocalypse, he transformed from a skinny Cambridge nerd into a bronze, muscular guy. I climbed the little hill with the food box. Mom asked me to bring you some salted chicken and Coke. Just then, Benton's drone took off. He said, "Give me the Coke first, I'm dying of thirst." Oh yeah. I popped open the can, put a straw in, and handed it to him as the drone flew away. How far can it go? I asked. He's been trying to fix the base station to reconnect with the outside world, but it wasn't working yet. I've modified it with every resource I could find. Optimistically, it can hover for 20 hours. I had no clue how impressive that was. As he spoke, images started showing on his laptop. We got a signal? I was surprised. Yeah, I rigged the base station's satellite signal, but it only works here. Sitting down together while he ate, I started messing with the computer. The drone's footage was still over the mountains. Eagerly, I checked the news. Even though the buffering made me nauseous, I was still satisfied. The news station kept rolling out disease control and prevention guidelines. Basically, eliminate mosquitoes, maintain personal hygiene, and keep a distance from people. Even folks staying at home or in bases couldn't stop the death rate, which had become just numbers on a cold chart. Apart from natural disasters, humanity suffered from self-inflicted chaos. In this hell-like apocalyptic world, crime rates were soaring. Statistics showed people dying from diseases, and crimes were almost equally divided. Are we humans going extinct? I murmured. Benton munched on the bun. The country's still here, holding on. Research for a cure hasn't stopped. We won't die out. Yes, our village will persevere. I hadn't finished my confident words when the drone footage showed scenes from other villages. Though the buffering turned them into stills, I clearly saw Sarah's face. Judging by the surveillance, Sarah and her group were at West Village. West Village had turned chaotic, full of violence. The drone had already captured several fights. Sarah, along with her former companions, seemed to be calling the shots now. Holding a gun, she ordered a young man around, shouting, "You won't listen, then you'll die. Even if it kills me, I have to say it, and die." We were living just fine, so why go and raid another village? With a bang, Sarah picked up a big rock and cracked it over that guy's head. I was shocked and thought, she's coming our way. Sarah spotted the drone and started marching towards it. Benton, holding one of our dumplings in his mouth, began manually controlling the drone. With some close calls, the drone managed to fly away. Now I understand what Benton meant about not unleashing Pandora's box. Look at the villagers from the West Village, who used to be so simple and honest, now all with twisted faces. Benton, while maneuvering the drone around the village, said to me, "Go find my dad. We need to be ready for battle." The drone's direct path meant it took about an hour to get to the West Village, but for people, trudging through the mountains without transportation would take about a day. When our village heard that Sarah might lead an attack on us, everyone was fired up. We should have just taken them out at the village entrance when we had the chance. Yeah, and after giving them all those cookies. What they didn't know was that Sarah's crew had guns. Benton didn't step in at the time to avoid putting the village in danger. The village leader held his megaphone with a grim look. "Listen, everyone. We've stockpiled a lot of weapons. We can definitely keep the enemy outside the village. The handmade explosives we crafted these past days finally came in handy." The village leader had them planted all along the roads. Our village stayed organized, not collapsing into chaos. People like Laura and me, the vulnerable ones, weren't put on the front line. As everyone bustled around, I noticed Laura looked pale. Mom, are you all right? Worried, she thought about Sarah. Laura pulled me aside. Mia, don't worry. I'm definitely going to keep you safe this time. I was stunned. Mom, do you know the people with Sarah? Laura nodded. Yeah, in a past life when delivering supplies to Sarah, I saw those people. I was always careful on the way, avoiding contact and using herbs to ward off insects. But outside Sarah's refuge, I found Sarah with those people. They were ruthless, ruling over the shelter with no humanity. They took her herbs and masks and didn't let her in. Knowing she wouldn't be spared, I managed to walk back, foraging along the way. But upon reaching the village gate, I realized I was infected. Not daring to step inside, I died roadside. Opening her eyes again, she realized she was reborn. Having been at death's door, she learned her lesson. Laura grabbed the village chief, Marcus's arm. We can't let them in. I mean it. Attack if you must. Whatever it takes, Sarah can't come in. Sarah showed her true colors in this end-of-day scenario. She wasn't just any troublemaker. She was a tactical opportunist, looking to rein in this tight situation. Now she comes leading dozens of people over hills to our village entrance. But they've been under the drone's watch almost the entire journey. Just meters from the gate, the homemade landmines began exploding chaotically. Laura insisted on being on the front line, so I crouched alongside her in a tree, binoculars in hand, watching. In the blink of an eye, it was chaos outside. In the binoculars, I spotted Sarah. Lucky her, dodging without getting hit, only bringing dozens. Half were already blown away at the gate. They have bombs. Run, Sarah. Unsatisfied, she shot in the direction of the electric fence before retreating. But they hadn't gone far. Benton's drone tracked them, lingering in the nearby woods. Sarah was trying to rally the West Village people, claiming, our village is rich in supplies. I saw Mia from their village drinking cola. If we can get in, we won't have to worry about food or drink. Seeing her serious demeanor, albeit through a choppy video feed, was almost comical. Benton selected 2 captives via drone and had them captured alive. After interrogation, we learned about the West Village's situation. Originally, they were like us, a peaceful sanctuary. While they didn't initially stockpile as many supplies, they lived off the land. It began to collapse when Sarah and her group showed up at their gate. Sarah turned on the waterworks, pleading outside for 3 days. Debates erupted among the villagers about letting them in. The first bloodshed happened when someone shouted to kill the sympathetic. The opposing faction killed one of those sympathizing. Pandora's box had opened. Villagers began brawling, chaos ensued. Eventually, they even forgot why the fight started. When Sarah's group revealed their guns, they stood firmly with the sympathizers. Armed, they won the bloody conflict, brazenly welcoming Sarah and her group into the village. Thus began the West Village's nightmare. Violence ruled the village. Already short on supplies, with constant fighting, their unity fractured. Sarah's crew, having weapons, controlled the food. The West Village residents, tears and snot flowing, recounted their ordeal. Benton nudged me. What? Proudly, he said, admit your brother's smart. I covered my face. Sarah's gang was destined to be outmatched by Benton. After the first day's explosive denouement, the villagers were scared. After all, they had guns. But Benton reassured them. It's been a year, and they've never left West Village for supplies. Where would they get more ammo? Not to mention Benton's drone was unpredictable. After switching out its battery at night, it flew back to the woods. At dawn, Sarah tried attacking the village again. Firing wildly, it was shockingly intense. But as daylight broke, they realized. Scarecrows. We'd tricked them. Wasting all those bullets, we hid behind the trees at the village entrance. No one acted rashly. As long as the power grid is up, we can keep them out. But then, a sickening scene unfolded. A few wobbly, emaciated people came out of the dense forest. They peed at the entrance of our village. What's the deal with that? Benton adjusted his mask. They want to spread the virus to us. I was shocked. They're infected. Look at them walking like zombies, their faces all hollowed. The armed guys from West Village kept their distance. After they peed, Those people even spat at the electric fence and nervously glanced back at the guys with guns. But as soon as they turned to leave, the guys opened fire. Unbelievable. Just heartless, Sarah shouted from outside. Mia, don't think you can hold on to all those supplies. I'll come back and destroy you. You took away the wealth that was supposed to be mine for 18 years, and now you're hogging the safety and supplies that should be mine. I won't let you off. People of your village, listen up. Hand over Mia if you don't want trouble from me. Listen up. Hand over Mia if you don't want trouble from me. Otherwise, you'll all regret it someday. Then she led her starved followers away, leaving behind those infected bodies at our village gate. The village chief chuckled angrily. Wow, they've really outdone themselves. People gathered around looking at me, their expressions mixed. I felt scared and stepped back. Laura quickly blocked me. Sarah's lost it. You won't listen to her nonsense, right? The chief waved a hand. Laura, what's on your mind? Without you and Mia buying us all those supplies and calling back the kids, would we have what we have today? Another villager chimed in. Aunt Laura, don't overthink. We're human. Unlike them. Benton smiled. He's usually so serious that his smile caught me off guard. He pulled me out from behind Laura. He mocked me. Comrade Mia always thinks the outside world has lost its humanity. No way. Relax, Mia. We'll protect you. The atmosphere quickly became warm and friendly. Benton and others fully geared up, burned the bodies at the gate, and disinfected the area. After this, Benton roamed around with his drones looking for Sarah. To be honest, given the current situation, everyone prefers staying home as long as they're not infected, waiting for a cure, except for lunatics like Sarah, who would bother us. Keep an eye on her, and peace prevails. I spent my days with him by the signal tower as he tirelessly tried to fix it. So he left monitoring to me. I watched Sarah wreak havoc in nearby villages. Same routine, she'd stir drama and then sneak in. Drones even overheard her planning to gather people to attack us. I was stunned. Why does she hate me this much? Benton fiddled with the tower. In Doomsday, there are two kinds of people. Me, those who believe it'll end, and those like her who think it's time to establish new rules. Me? So she's the latter. Exactly, she ain't too bright. Recently, staying by the tower, I saw many countries give up, but ours hasn't. The first batch of antiviral drugs began testing, showing promise. Sadly, most rural signal stations are destroyed, cutting us off from the news. Benton worked another day, devouring 6 big buns I made. Yet the signal tower remained unfixed. As dusk settled, he gave up. I'll try again tomorrow. Tell Laura to make me some pickled veggie and meat buns, with a Coke. Me? Sure. In this life, after the global population halved, I spent 3 worry-free and simple years in the village. We adjusted to life without power or internet. It wasn't too bad. Many young villagers' eyesight got better, except mine. I kept tabs on screens and news for Benton. The lag was awful, making my nearsightedness worse. Benton's drones became more advanced. My skills with his drones improved too. I could swiftly control them to escape when Sarah's people spotted them, without Benton intervening. He spent 3 years fixing the signal tower. Finally, one day, it worked. He casually mentioned it. It was a sunny day, perhaps due to reduced human activity and shutdowns of large factories. The sunlight shone brighter, and the sky looked clearer. Benton, with a towel around his neck and messy hair, proudly called out while I dozed, monitoring. Unresponsive, he lightly kicked me. Wake up. What's done? Mia? Yeah, it's done. What's done? Oh no, Sarah's here. On the monitor, Sarah, who had taken over 3 villages, marched in again, all aggressive. She shouted, "This time we'll take down East Village." What to do? What to do? Plant landmines. What to do? What to do? Plant landmines. Quickly, get Uncle to plant mines. I panicked, crawling all over the hillside. Then a phone appeared in front of me. Me? Benton grinned. Call the cops. Me? Benton smugly said, signals back, orders restored. The news page on the computer showed that the army was cracking down on crime. I eagerly picked up the long-lost phone, my heart racing and hands trembling, and dialed 911. Sarah's gun-toting band had lived like outlaws in the mountains for 3 years. They fought, killed, almost queen of the area. But just as she thought she was ready, with hundreds following her and guns at the ready, she advanced. Her downfall was having no signal. Just as they reached the village gate, the army surrounded them. A loud voice boomed across the hills. "You're surrounded. Drop your weapons and surrender immediately. The antiviral drug is in use. The apocalypse is over. Society's returning to order." Shell-shocked, Sarah's men panicked. "Really, really? The virus is under control? We won't die?" I was hiding behind the power grid, watching Sarah's face through binoculars. She seemed so shocked and unwilling to accept what was happening. "No way. The apocalypse can't be over. You all have to listen to me. Come back here. My era is just beginning." But soon enough, her entourage turned against her. "I've had enough of you." They rushed her, surrounding her and giving her a beating as they hit her. Someone yelled, "She's the mastermind. We didn't want to come here in the first place." By the time the army managed to regain control of the scene, she was barely conscious. The villagers from the countryside shakily stepped out from behind the power grid. "Is it really truly over?" the village chief asked, full of emotion. A soldier saluted us. "It's over. Your persistence these past few years has meant something." In that moment, cheers erupted like a thunderclap. And then, out of nowhere, Laura and I found ourselves being tossed into the air by a crowd of people. "We survived! We made it through!" When the soldiers arrived, they handed out the special medicine right away. With the meds in our hands, we felt relieved. Even though we had been living relatively well, we quickly dismantled the power grid. The whole village came together, putting out a 3-day feast to celebrate the joy of finally being free. Finally, we held on to the essence of civilization and returned to a civilized society. Restoring complete social order took some time, but the army was already distributing the special medicine throughout society. 3 months later, Benton and I went to visit Sarah. I asked Laura if she wanted to come, but she declined. She said, "That's a past life. The bond is over." So Benton volunteered to accompany me. Not sure how, but he managed to get diesel from the army, filled up my tricycle, and off we went. Sarah wasn't dead. When I saw her, she was paralyzed from the waist down and stuck in a hospital bed. The sight of me made her wet the bed. If the death penalty was her fate, it would probably be a mercy. Seeing Benton with me, she started drooling and crying again. "Benton, it's me. I knew you first." I was shocked she cried about that. I looked at Benton in surprise. He quickly raised his hands. "I don't really know her. We grew up together." "I'm so mad. She took everything from me," Sarah yelled, hitting the bed with her handcuffed hands. Benton pulled me back a few steps. "Just wait for the trial. No telling how long this punishment will last." I also felt grossed out, so I left with Benton. I heard some street food stalls had opened. "Let's go try them." "Cool, I'll buy for you." Amid Sarah's cries of frustration, we briskly walked out of the hospital room. Our new life had just begun.